Well, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
I met John when I first came to Davis, almost the first day.
Specifically, I met him in a bar.
He started talking to me. I go, who is this crazy man wanting to talk all the time?
I probably said something like, would you like to change your world?
But I said, okay, I talk, got to be friendly. I don't know where I am here. He's being somewhat friendly anyway. I got to trust him, I guess.
He seemed somewhat sympathetic, but he was kind of shy.
And I didn't know what to say. I wasn't trusting very many people here anyway, because I grew up in a world that's all black. I came out here with my family, with my stepfather, my mother.
His mother became my surrogate mother without me realizing it or Terry.
And my mother likes John a lot. She thinks John is the greatest young man. And she thinks he's a little naive, but he's young and nice.
He came to Davis in '63.
Right.
Why?
To be the campus minister at the Cal-Aggie Christian Association, the assistant campus minister.
I worked up in Placer County, worked for the health department up there for the Winter Olympics in 1960. And after the Olympics were over, there was an opening at UC Davis.
I ran into Dick, and we kind of hit it off.
I didn't really become friends with Dick until later.
Terry was working as a laboratory technician in the biochemistry department, setting up labs for the biochemistry classes.
I got a job at the university pretty much right away.
Radioactive material was being used at that time. One of my jobs was to keep an eye on what they were using and make sure they were doing it right. So I used to have to go over there and talk to Terry about doing it right. And so we got to be very good friends.
Was there racism in town, in Davis?
Oh, yeah.
There was no place that people of color could live in Davis.
There was restrictions for blacks living in Davis.
There were restrictive covenants on housing in Davis
We was kind of breaking the code.
that said that you cannot sell this to a person of color or a Jew.
In Davis, people never even thought about it. And so it was always hard to bring it up. And when you did bring it up, you really got criticized. I mean, really criticized.
In the early 1960s, Davis, California was known mostly for agriculture, bicycles, and its university. Like much of the rest of the country, Davis had watched from a distance as the civil rights movement gathered momentum.
They tried to make a march from Selma to Montgomery, and it was put back up and stopped.
People were having their buses turned over and burnt and all that stuff, and their heads kicked in.
In 1965, however, this small suburban town took an unusual step. 32 area residents boarded a bus for Alabama to join Dr. Martin Luther King in his march to Montgomery. This is their story.
Freedom, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Gonna ask my brothers.
Martin Luther King wrote a letter asking people to come down and join him on a march from Selma to Montgomery. I was delighted to say, yes, I'll go.
Gonna ask my sister.
So we figured that there's probably going to be enough people in the area that will want to go. We said, okay, we'll all go and we'll charge each other to ride on the bus. My wife at the time, she went down and she rented a Greyhound bus. And we had it figured out how much it would cost to get down there.
So I went to all the ministers first and said, hey man, we gotta go, The fire hosing the kids was on TV to kind of give a base for everybody. When you went to call and say, would you like to go to Montgomery? They would say, yeah.
And so I said, well, that would be interesting. Hope you enjoy yourself. He goes, well, would you think about going? I says, Not really.
And then I had the opportunity to talk to Terry's mother, and she said, "You don't know what you're doing." She didn't think I knew, which I didn't, how deep the racism was in the South.
And I shouldn't go down there because I wouldn't be a good person. Afraid that I wouldn't even trust myself if somebody challenged me, because I never passed up a fight. So my mother told me I should go. I need to put that stuff aside. My chip on my shoulder, which I had pretty good. She says, "Well, I know this is very dangerous, but you be careful, but I want you to go. So this is for the best."
Didn't you have to sign a nonviolence pledge?
I had this pledge of nonviolence. My mother told me to make sure I did that too, because she knew that I might do something like go get a pistol and carry with me or something. I signed the pledge. I stuck to it.
One of my dearest friends, who I really love and I love to this day, he wanted to come. And he said, "Okay, Dick, I'm going to come. And I've got the money. What am I supposed to do?" First of all, you've got to sign this sheet here that says you're going to be nonviolent. You're not going to hit anybody. You're not going to do anything like that. He said, "Hell, I can't do that." He gave us the $100 anyway, even though he didn't go.
Somebody had paid some money, it wasn't going, so I went in their place.
But he had 7 children at that time, I think, so he shouldn't really have gone in the first place.
I'm getting on the bus, and we're over here by the community church, by the park where the farmer's market is. It was all really interesting and weird. Again, I don't trust all these people. I was kind of looking at the Episcopal Church as a place to be, but the minister told me he couldn't support civil rights stuff. He told me that as I was getting on the bus. He says, "Well, I can't support you." Fine, excellent. So that cleared. At least somebody's being honest around here.
Going down there was kind of exciting. We sang civil rights songs on the way down.
What are some of the songs you remember?
"Oh Freedom, oh Freedom." You know that song?
Can you sing it? It's not a line. Give me a sing a line.
Well, I'll do the best I can. I've got a terrible cold, as you know. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be your slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. It went quite smoothly at first, until we got into Tennessee and some of these outlying areas. And as we got there, we had to be really careful what we did and what we said.
I mean, it's obvious this is not going to be an easy trip. I knew that more than probably John and Dick did, because I knew these people. And I know that those people are crazy. They shoot you.
We could go and get a bite to eat in a couple of places, but Terry couldn't come in with me.
Dick, he's always funny. To me, he was the most naive in some ways. He'd always stop and go, "Well, let's eat. No problem." I says, "Dick, together? Here? Yeah, let's all sit down." "Okay, Dick." So they'd come and go, "You guys cannot sit down together here." "Okay, then can we put a table between this door arch? And that's the black side, this is the white side. We'll put a table in between there." And sat, so we did that.
You put a table, there was 2 rooms essentially.
Right, one for the blacks and one for whites.
And so you put a table straddling both rooms.
Right.
And the black guys sat on one side and the white people sat on the other side.
Right. Then we ate and talked.
And that was okay with the management of the place.
I don't know if it was okay, but
They couldn't say anything.
They couldn't say anything. We were all in our allotted rooms.
One of the people that went with us was a black minister from Sacramento. And he came with 2 or 3 women that were part of his congregation. They came to us and said, "Hey, he's really sick. He needs hospital." So, okay, well, we'll find something. We got him and we rented a taxi. We said, "Take us to a hospital." He says, "There aren't any black hospitals here. You can't go." We said, well, wait a minute, this man's ill. He's got to be taken care of, but find out what's going on. We went to that hospital with him, and lo and behold, they did take care of him and give him some medicine to help.
But you had to insist.
Oh, yeah. It was really bad,
Well, from there, you're going down to the Mississippi. John has a beard, and he's nervous, and he's shaving that baby off. And he comes out of that little restroom in the back of the bus. He's got nicks and blood every place. We got, John, are you a little nervous, man? Huh? What'd you shave your beard off for? I don't want to cause any trouble. I go, you've already caused trouble, John. There's obviously cars checking out the bus. The bus driver's getting nervous and driving kind of wild and fast down those highways. And telling us to be careful around the windows. I go, be careful around the windows. Yeah, somebody's shooting here, huh? Yep. And Terry, you have no weapons with you, nothing. I used to at least carry a knife with me or something, but I didn't have that.
When we got off the bus, after traveling all the way, this bootblack goes, you need a shoe shine, sir? I said, I'll tell you one thing, that's about the last thing I need is a suit. Well, I'll tell you what, I want to give you a shoe shine free. Here, just sit down here. Had to be like 70. And he's giving me the shoe shine, and he goes, you're to call 220-2467. They'll tell you where to stay. I'm going, are you kidding? He says, no, this stuff's all serious, man. Okay. He taps my shoe. And what's the number again? And I get the number and I call. Never looked me in the eye.
They wanted us to come to Montgomery because that's where the march was going to come into Montgomery. We stopped nearby, and then we had another bus locally that drove us out to join the march as it came in from Selma. And they brought a bus up after we showered and changed and put our suits on to make sure we didn't have our beards anymore. We shaved all our beards off and everything, so we didn't look like a bunch of hippies. And then we walked out and went off in the bus.
You gotta walk when the Spirit says walk.
Then we marched into town. It was really fun coming in from way out of town, and then you start to see the beginnings of the city. Everywhere along the way, there were tons of people out there shouting and cheering as we came along, but they were all black. The guys ahead of us were clerics from all over the United States. I mean, a lot of priests were there, a lot of people from the seminaries, major seminaries in the United States. And many of those seminaries got into serious trouble for having been involved in this.
You gotta walk when the Spirit says walk.
There were groups that were along the side of the road that were black, and they were just really enjoying everything and just thought it was wonderful. And then there were also groups that were white along the road, man, and they looked like they were ready to rip us apart.
My friends did not know what they were doing there. They did not understand that these people really were mad. They wasn't just joking and just trying to cause anything. They were mad, and they wanted to do something to us if they could, but there was too many National Guard and other people around, too many TV cameras, so they couldn't do anything.
They wanted to get up to the front because the preachers like John and the Congregation Church in Davis were wearing their clerical collars, and all they wanted to do was get up there and spit on those people, And a bunch of us just huddled all around them, and we took the spit. It was a privilege to be able to take the spit.
Gotta walk when the Spirit says walk.
That night there was a big rally in just at the edge of town, and they had top-notch performers from all over the United States that were there. Joan Baez, Peter Seeger.
You gotta march when the Spirit says march.
And we were at this little old Baptist church where we were staying. We all slept on the pews in the church.
I remember they were hard, sleeping on pews. Hard to sit in and hard to sleep on, too. They had to have guards out there for us all night, day and night. And John knew that, but he still didn't quite know why. He'd never felt that kind of hostility before.
At the church where we stayed, I offered to do security. oh, we don't want you doing the security. If they see that there's a white person in this church, we're all doomed.
And while we were there, I could hear this boom, 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 boom outside. And all the men in that church were marching around and around the church with the idea that they're not going to let anybody come in and do us any harm.
Gotta march when the spirit says march.
The food was nice. The women were really nice to me. They thought I should meet their daughters, and I thought, that'd be a nice, bad idea this evening. Yeah, this pew is hard. Of course, I didn't get outside the pew, but nor did I get to meet the daughters. But the food was good.
And when the spirit says march, you gotta march, march,
Walking
march.
down, I could see that Capitol building. I thought I could see George shaking his fist at us, but of course I couldn't see that. But there was lots of his friends around either side of us, and they were throwing out epithets and threats and stuff all over the place.
We went to the front steps of the legislature of Alabama and heard Martin Luther King speak and all kinds of other people speak.
After Martin Luther King spoke, I had $25 left, and I got a cab driver, and I had him take me to a florist.
Why were you getting the floor?
Well, I was getting the flowers for the women of the church for being our hostess.
He said, John, don't do this. Oh, it'll be okay. He takes off. And they told him, you're the stupidest white man I ever saw.
I walked into the florist, and there were maybe 25 people in there, and all of a sudden, towards the back of the shop, I said to myself, I don't think there's anybody talking. I think if 25 people are in this place and no one's talking, I'm in deep danger.
I mean, they knew that John wasn't from there and what he was down there for.
So I grabbed the plant, threw the $25 down, and got out of there. And as I got out of there, this cab driver comes up, black cab driver. You've got to be the dumbest mother I have ever seen.
John's going to get these women flowers for helping us at the church. I mean, they certainly appreciate the flowers, but John, you're getting the entire church in jeopardy.
What are you doing here? They'll shoot you. Get in the cab. I said, I don't have any money left. Well, I'll take you back to where you have to go. I said, I want to go back to the church.
We wound up then getting back on the bus, and when we had all of our people in the bus, we drove straight out of town. As we drove on the highway in the bus, the car ahead of us was stopped with a bullet and went off, screeched off of the road, and it killed the people on board.
On the way to Jackson, we're told to duck, put our heads down, and the bus driver hits the accelerator. We're driving really fast down the street road.
He all of a sudden says,
The bus driver.
there are some lights up. I'm suspicious of these lights that are coming from the farmhouses, so please bend down so they can't see that there's anybody on this bus, and I'll try to speed through. And that was right about the place that Liuzzo was shot.
We had to keep going. We couldn't stop.
Mrs. Viola Liuzzo was driving tired marchers back to Selma from Montgomery when 4 Klansmen pulled up alongside her window and fired. Viola Liuzzo died instantly. Her passenger, Leroy Moten, pretended to be dead until the Klansmen drove off. The marchers from Davis arrived home safely on Sunday, March 28, 1965. On that same day, Dr. Martin Luther King, speaking at San Francisco's Grace Cathedral, acknowledged the contributions of marchers from this area.
I felt very proud that 40 people from Davis went. And sense of accomplishment, I helped get them there. As a young minister, I was really fired up because it was connected with King, and for me, King's theology. And most important was the ministry it is important to people's lives. That stayed with me through lots of flack, and we got fired. But I beat the firing. My colleague, Dave Burnite, did not. They fired Dave because the Presbyterians were more significant in the campus ministry in terms of funding, and so they were picking on Dave because campus ministry was considered pretty far out then. But we were the guys who weren't evangelists. We were trained, because of the seminary training at the time, to be social activists.
I kept on thinking that there was stuff that needed to be done, and we organized the Davis Human Relations Council. We did a lot of stuff with the business of changing all of those regulations concerning limiting people from selling from one race to another. By 1972, I ran with 2 other people for city council in Davis on that platform, and it worked. It worked. It's a hell of a lot better now than it was then.
It gave me strength and a passion to try to succeed and do things that don't matter what people tell you. I should ignore them if that's what I want to do. I like being an artist.
There's something good about justice. And maybe if we shared each other's relative insights, maybe we can change the scene.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more weeping, no more weeping, no more weeping over me. And before I'd be your slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more Wallace, no more Wallace, no more Wallace over me. And before I'd be your slave, I'll be buried in my grave, then go home to my Lord and be free.